Before I get started, I wanted
Monsieur
to
le
offer
Président,
my condolences
à
to the
l'occasion
victims
du
and to all those
75e
grieving after the
anniversaire
horrific
de la
shooting
fin
in
de la Deuxième
Vienna
Guerre
that
mondiale,
started in front
nous
of the city's
reconnaissons la
synagogue.
chance que nous avons de
We
vivre
stand
dans
by
un
the people of
pays
Austria
comme
and
le
Jewish
nôtre,
communities around the
grâce au
world
sacrifice,
who are
au
reeling from
service
this attack.
et à la ténacité
There have
des
been
gens
too
qui
many
ont
of these
vécu cette
unacceptable
terrible
acts of
guerre.
terrorism and violence
Ils
in
ont
our world
enduré la
recently,
perte de frères,
including in
de
France over the
sœurs
last few
et
weeks
d'amis.
and at
Et
Kabul
malgré
University
tout,
in
ils ont
Afghanistan
trouvé de
yesterday.
l'espoir et de la compassion
Canada stands
les uns
united with
dans les
people
autres.
everywhere in
Au
condemning
cours des
these
décennies,
latest
ils ont
terrible
continué de
attacks.
paver le chemin pour bâtir un monde
Ces
meilleur
jours-ci, notre
et
monde
pour
fait face à
servir
des
le
défis
bien commun.
de toutes sortes.
Et
De plus en
c'est ce
plus, on
même
voit que la
sens
deuxième
du
vague de
devoir
COVID-19
et du
donne de la
sacrifice
difficulté
qui a
à
aussi
plusieurs
conduit nos
pays
forces
d'Europe
armées à
et d'ailleurs.
participer à de
Le
multiples
Royaume-Uni
missions de
a
maintien de la
annoncé
paix,
une nouvelle
notamment
phase
en
de
Corée
confinement.
et en Afghanistan.
La Belgique et la France
Quand
connaissent
nous
une
avons
hausse
besoin d'eux,
fulgurante
nos
des
femmes et nos hommes en
hospitalisations.
uniforme sont toujours
Leurs infirmières et
prêts à
leurs
se
médecins
porter
sont
au
épuisés
secours des
et
autres.
leurs hôpitaux sont
Récemment,
débordés.
ils ont fait
La
preuve
situation est
d'altruisme en
inquiétante.
protégeant et en aidant
Il faut la
nos
prendre au
citoyens
sérieux.
les plus vulnérables.
The second wave of
personnes
COVID-19 in places
dans les
like the
établissements de
UK,
soins de longue
Belgium,
durée.
and France is
Monsieur
a
le
wake-up
Président,
call
leur
that
geste
Canadians
et leur
cannot
dévouement à l'égard
afford
des
to
valeurs
ignore.
canadiennes
Right now,
sont
this
le
virus is
reflet de
being
ce que
given the
nous avons
chance to
de
spread.
meilleur
It's being
à
given the
offrir.
opportunity to grow.
Our veterans
I know that's hard to
serve
hear,
Canada
but
with
the numbers
honor
are showing
and valor
us
right
that our
across
window
this country
to turn this
and all
around
around the world.
is closing
They
fast.
stepped up for us,
We have to work
and now it's
together
time for us
right
to do the same
now
for them.
to beat the
We don't
second
need to
wave.
wonder how we will
won't
rise
be
to the
easy,
moment because we
I
need
know we
only
can
look
do it.
around Canada to see the answer.
Just yesterday, I
We
spoke
see
to
it in
Dr.
young
Tam
people
and to our
getting
caucus from
groceries for
Manitoba
older veterans
about
to
what
keep
that
them safe.
province needs to
We
do
see it in
to deal with
frontline
their
workers
latest
who,
surge
after
in cases.
hours of standing on
On
tired
top of the
feet,
federal support we've
never give
already
up
provided
as they
from the
care
Safe
for our
Restart
parents and
Agreement for the
grandparents,
Safe Return to
the
Class
last
Fund,
members of the
we're
greatest
taking
generation.
additional measures.
We've seen
Already,
it in the
we've
crew of
delivered
the
to Manitoba
HMCS
over
Fredericton
90,000
and the members of the
rapid
Snowbirds.
tests.
Brave
Nationwide,
women
the
and
number is
men
more
who,
than 2
even
million
after
rapid
tragedy,
tests
continue
shipped to
to
the
show
front
us
lines.
what service
For Manitoba
and
in particular,
sacrifice
we're
mean.
also providing federal support
En
on
cette
contact
semaine des
tracing,
vétérans,
modeling,
pensons
and
à ceux qui ont
COVID-19
servi
test
avec
processing.
honneur et
And we're
courage.
shipping out PPE
Laissons-nous
and working together
inspirer
on
par
support
les
for
idéaux
measures like
qu'ils
isolation
avaient à
housing.
cœur
There
et
and
contribuons
right across
tous
the country. We
ensemble
will continue collaborating with
bâtir
all
avec
orders
eux
of government
un monde
to keep
meilleur.
Canadians
Merci,
safe.
Monsieur le Président.
But governments can't do this alone. We need your help, too. So please, limit the number of people you see to what is absolutely essential. Download COVID Alert. 5 million people are now using this app. And keep wearing your mask, washing your hands, and staying 2 meters apart. I know it's tough, but it'll be even tougher if we give up now. We flattened the curve this spring. It's time to do it again. Depuis le début, nous travaillons avec tous les ordres du gouvernement pour assurer la sécurité des Canadiens et maîtriser cette deuxième vague. Nous n'avons pas été Il y a déjà 5 millions de personnes qui l'utilisent maintenant. Continuez de porter le masque, de vous laver les mains, de garder une distance, je sais que c'est difficile, et ça va être encore pire si on abandonne maintenant. On a aplati la courbe ce printemps, et on peut le faire cet automne. Over the last 2 weeks, I've been speaking with business owners across the country.
The Canada Child Benefit has been putting more money in the pockets of hardworking Canadian families since 2016 as part of its COVID-19 economic response plan. The Government of Canada gave 3.7 million families a one-time extra payment with their regular May 2020 Canada Child Benefit payment. Families already getting the benefit received an additional $300 per child. Also this year, in July 2020, the CCB has been indexed to inflation to keep up with the cost of living. Now, this benefit year, based on income when filing your 2019 tax return, eligible families can receive up to $6,765 a year per child under age 6, and up to $5,708 per child age 6 through 17. This gives increased support for middle-class families so that they can pay for things like healthy food, clothes for growing children, and activities they can do together at home. For example, a family with 2 children under the age of 6 with an income of $30,000 will receive $13,530 this benefit year. That is $250 more tax-free than last year, and just over $3,000 more when compared to child benefits that existed before the Canada Child Benefit. And it's tax-free. So when your family files their tax return, there's no CCB to pay back. It's that simple. This is just one of the many ways the government of Canada provides support to families who need it most. For more information, visit canada.ca/Canada Child Benefit.
J'espère que tous les parlementaires appuieront l'adoption rapide de ce projet de loi important pour venir en aide aux travailleurs et aux propriétaires de petites entreprises. Tout comme cette pandémie a été difficile pour les propriétaires de petites entreprises, elle a également été difficile pour les agriculteurs. Au cours des mois à venir, nous continuerons d'être là pour les femmes et les hommes qui nous aident à mettre la bonne nourriture dans nos assiettes.
Among the businesses impacted by COVID, we're the hardest hit. We were the first to be shut down, and we're going to be the last.
We are here today in Ottawa at the iconic Chateau Laurier to launch this coalition, an example of a hotel that's struggling. And there are hotels all over this country struggling.
Estimated we've lost 700 businesses and lost about 21,000 employees.
We're down 90 to 95% in some of them 100%.
Dans l'aspect COVID-19, disons d'un monde où il y a encore un truc à Toronto, un festival de Stratford, un stampede à Calgary.
One of the government's pinnacle support programs is the wage subsidy. And that program, in its last iteration, it was announced that it is winding
Welcome
down
to the South Asian Environment Dialogue.
We are not recovering. And so we're asking the government to reverse that wind down and to also extend the coverage until we can actually recover, which we forecast to be the spring or summer of next year.
We discuss a range of issues of environment and climate change related issues in South Asia. And the last 5 or 6 weeks, we have discussed rivers, we have discussed the biodiversity laws and a whole lot of it. And now, today, we will be discussing an issue which may not be a South Asia specific issue, but is going to have large implication on South Asia's environment. That is the US election. The big question is US turning green? With question mark, and question mark. Because till the last result that I have of the US election, it is pretty close, but it seems that Mr. Joe Biden is going ahead. He is almost on verge of victory, no officially announced, but it seems that Joe Biden will scrape through. But even if he scrapes through, it's a very close election. And the vote percentage, as of now, his popular vote percentage is about 50.5%, with Joe Biden and Trump is around 47.8%. So you understand how close it is. It's a messy election, it's a close election. But today we are going to talk about the implication of this election and Joe Biden winning, hopefully, or we don't know the future, on the climate implication. I have a great panel to discuss that. Let me introduce the panel to you. I have Dr. Salman Hoque, climate expert. He's from ICAD, International Center for Climate Change and Development, from Bangladesh. And Dr. Hoque is one of the most revered climate experts internationally right now. Thank you, Dr. Hoque, for joining the program and making time for it. I have Ms. Chandra Bhushan, CB, as we call him, CB. CB is a very eminent environment and climate expert from India. He has formed an organization called International Forum for Environment, Sustainability and Technology. I believe I got it right. It's called iForest, that's the shorter form. And he has been part of CSE, the Center for Science and Environment, for more than a decade. And I have with me Aarti Khosla. Aarti is a communication expert. You have a COP and Aarti is there doing a lot of things and a very, very important cog in the wheel. And she's a director with Climate Trends and also part of GSCC India. And also I have Mr. Imran Saqib Khalid. Mr. Khalid is from Pakistan, from SDPI, Sustainable Development Policy Institute. So that's the panel with us. I think a fantastic panel. So as I said, very outset, this US election is closer than was said before the election. Pandits, what they said. But we are interested about the implication on environment and climate change. And if I may start with Dr. Hoppe, that as you see now, it seems that Joe Biden is creeping through. That's what we feel right now. What is the implication on the global environment, specifically climate change and South Asia in particular? Dr. Hoppe.
Thank you very much, Jayanta. Please call me Salim. We are amongst friends here. Very good question. I'm going to presume that Mr. Biden within the next few hours will be declared the president. He has already made a speech even before he's been declared, in which he has mentioned climate change as one of the 3 or 4 major issues that he will take seriously. So that's a good sign. Now, so my first comment will be to say it is a good sign that he's coming in to reverse the direction of travel that Trump had done for the last 4 years. Last 4 years, the US under Trump had not only not participated, they had taken the US backwards, and another 4 years would have been devastating for the whole world. So at least he has prevented that devastation. Now the question is, how much will he actually do when he comes in? I am actually quite positive and hopeful that he will want to do things for several reasons. Firstly, he has now embraced climate change himself. He wasn't a big climate change person before. You know, his Democratic Party activists are the ones who have got him to become a climate change champion, which he has become, which is a good thing. And I believe that a large part of the vote will be revealed when we know all the details for him and the Democratic Party has come from young people, first-time voters. And they will be the ones who have brought him to the White House if he ends up in the White House, and they will demand action. They are already demanding action. So I see them as a force for good across the US, everywhere. And then the third and final point I would say, in fact, in the US context, even though it's a hotly contested election and the Republicans have huge support as well, it's sort of a 50-50 split almost. Nevertheless, the economy in the US is responding not to just whether they're in the Paris Agreement or not in the Paris Agreement. The economy is responding to the reality of climate change. On the one hand, the impacts are happening. They just had hurricanes, they had wildfires, super wildfires in California and Oregon. They had the hurricanes in the coast in Louisiana. They have another one coming up, in fact, the 28th hurricane of the season. They've never had 28 hurricanes. Okay, so this is now happening in the United States, climate change. They cannot deny it. And at the same time, the renewable energy revolution is also happening. Even in Republican states like Montana and Texas, they are investing in renewable energy in a very big way because it just simply makes sense. It's cheaper, it produces good jobs, and it provides them with energy. So they are moving away from fossils like coal, hopefully also from petroleum and natural gas, in their own economic interests rather than because they've agreed to the Paris Agreement.
So you were basically saying that it's not only for the international concern. So Joe Biden has to act under the pressure of the people who have voted for him, and also for his internal kind of interest of the US. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. And Joe Biden also promised to recommit the United States to the Paris Agreement. As we know that I think 4th of November, formally US has disconnected from the Paris Agreement. So you feel that that is going to be smooth affair, that Biden will be able to kind of reconnect US to the Paris?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. He's already declared that the first thing he will do when he gets sworn in, if and when he gets sworn in on the 20th of January, is for the U.S. to rejoin the Paris Agreement, and all the other countries will welcome him with open arms. The rest of the world follows the U.S. election in very, very great detail. I'm sure all of us have been watching television, and we know all about electoral college and number of the electoral votes in Pennsylvania and how many do they have in Georgia.
Exactly.
We know more about American politics than many American citizens, I can assure you. So we are following what's happened. We know if he comes in that.
So you are hopeful.
I am very hopeful. Very
okay,
hopeful.
I'll come back to you later about this specific impact on the South Asian and Bangladesh in particular. But before that, let me go to CB. CB, I remember, I think you can also remember, Dr. Hawk, and I think all of us can remember, that when Marrakesh happened, the US election result was coming up. And I can still remember when I reached Marrakesh to cover that COP, everybody thought that Hillary was going to win, and reverse happened, and they almost shell-shocked. They're completely shell-shocked. And for a couple of days, various political leaders across the world, they couldn't actually understand what they're going to say to the media. They shied away from the media. So that is the kind of scenario. So with now Biden coming up, what do you expect? What do you expect the implication on global climate negotiation and in South Asian perspective? Sibi.
So thank you, Jayanta. And I completely agree with the initial comments that Salim made. This coming of Biden is very important for climate change solidarity. I believe that he is now on board on climate change, and this is important. But I thought that the Democrats will also get Senate, and it is important. It was very important for from climate change perspective that both presidency, the Congress, and the House and the Senate should have come to Democrat. I'll tell you why. See, US joined Paris Agreement through an executive order of the president. That was Obama. And therefore, it was very easy for any president to come and reverse that executive order. That's what Trump did. Now, today, when Biden says he will join the Paris Agreement, he is thinking about the power of his executive office to join. But I would hope that US Senate will also support him, because once Senate endorses joining of the Paris Agreement, it is out of control of whims and fancies of the next president to get out of an international convention. Mm-hmm. Okay. So my hope is that it will not be only be an executive order that will allow US to get into the Paris Agreement, but also Biden will try and get the support of the House and the Senate for this, which will actually build much more confidence. You must understand that from Kyoto till Paris, US has this habit of getting in and getting out. Mm-hmm. Okay? And that has created a lot of uncertainty in the climate convention. You don't want that to happen again. And therefore, I would expect, and it is the job of climate campaigners in the US to not be just happy with an executive order getting US into the Paris Agreement, but getting the support of the entire political establishment for doing that.
But the numbers in Senate is not still in favor of Biden having.
But there are few Republican senators who are quite favorable to climate change. Okay. So, like any political establishment, it's not a monolith. And there are some Democrat senators who are not so favorable to climate change.
So you expect that to come on board.
If Biden is known to be, a political operator throughout his life. He has been in the Senate for decades.
So he knows how to think.
Yeah. Many people believe that Biden would be like what Johnson was before Johnson became president. He was a political operator. He knew how Senate and House works, and people are expecting that Biden will do the same. Now, as far as South Asia is concerned, I think you will have different implications on different countries.
Okay.
There will be certainly greater pressure on India to do more. Okay.
Just to kind of add on to this point, Biden said that he's not only talked about the recommitting to Paris, also said I am quoting, and he'll be doing an effort, he'll be undertaking an effort to get every major country to ramp up the ambition of their domestic climate targets. That's the officially said on the board.
That is right.
That's pressure will be on India. Yes.
So, for example, if he commits US to a net zero emission by 2035, if I'm not wrong, there is a confusion in my head whether it is 2050 or 2035. Salim will be able to clarify it. But if he commits US to a shorter duration target, say in next 2 decades to a net zero emission, it will have tremendous pressure on India, because please understand, US, those who want to oppose climate change in the US, take the name of China and India. Okay, China and India are the punching bag to say these 2 countries are not doing it and why you should be doing it.
Exactly.
So it will be political pressure. There will be huge political pressure on Joe Biden. On one hand to push China, but also to push India. Okay, and I believe it is good for India.
It's good for India. Okay.
I think it is good for India to make this transition. Whether we do it on our own or under international pressure doesn't matter.
That's a very interesting point, CB, and we'll have to discuss more on that.
Yes.
But let me come to Imran Saab. Mr. Khalid, specifically, this election, this US election, and hopefully or expectedly Joe Biden scraping through, what do you feel Pakistan as a country will be impact on Pakistan on the climate change and environment? I'm not talking about climate change. There's a huge issue of air pollution. So there are a lot of issues. So we should not restrict ourselves to climate change discussion only. So what do you think about the implication on Pakistan?
Thank you so much for having me be a part of this wonderful discussion, Janta. Environment and climate change, when we talk about these subjects, there's a great importance when it comes to multilateralism. This is something that Trump let go of when he came in. So multilateralism will be key when moving forward vis-a-vis the potential Biden presidency. Pakistan is facing a number of environmental issues. Our air is extremely degraded. So if Delhi is number 1 when it comes to pollution, Lahore is not very far behind. The situation in Islamabad, where I'm based, it's not, that much better. So, and air pollution is bad across South Asia. When it comes to our water, our industries are polluting our rivers and our lakes. We have a waste management system that that is virtually non-existent. So these are some of the things that we'd really like to move forward with. What the previous administration did was that they installed air monitors in the US Embassy and consulates across Pakistan. This is something that they had done earlier in Delhi and before that in Beijing. That was to highlight the poor air quality. And that has led the government to take steps to address this issue on their part. So the Environmental Protection Department is trying to take the lead in this, because you would not want to have an outside country come in and monitor your air and give you information regarding that. So there are some positives to take out of this. So when it comes to Biden, we're hoping that there will be a greater attention paid to a partnership between Pakistan as well as other South Asian countries in terms of addressing these environmental issues and giving us enhancing our capacity, providing the necessary technology to monitor and address these challenges. So this is particularly with respect to environment.
So Imran sir, you are expecting that with Joe Biden at the helm of the affair, there'll be more support, maybe financially and otherwise, to Pakistan for ramping up its environment and climate change related issues? You are expecting support technologically, financially, and otherwise?
I think we'll have a better chance when it comes to the Biden administration when we call their attention to loss and damage, for example. Pakistan is one of the most affected countries when it comes to climate change. So we've got floods happening, droughts, heat waves, and all these things are happening at the same time. So so the German Watch Institute ranks us as number 5 in the world when it comes to the countries that are most affected by it. So here we're not only looking for addressing the loss and damage challenges, but also in terms of enhancing our capacity to address mitigation and adaptation issues as well.
I think you raised a very important point of loss and damage, and I think we need to discuss that at somewhere down this discussion. But let me go to Aarti. Aarti, you have been working on this coal issue, the energy issue, and overall. So do you really feel that change of guard from Trump to Biden, that may influence the US relationship with rest of the world vis-a-vis the international negotiation? But on the actual on-ground issue of energy, on-ground issue of all these kind of things, do you coal and all, do you think that there will be any changes?
Thanks, Jayanto. Let me try and answer this in two parts, and already a few good points have been made. I do want to say that, it feels like it's a changed world from previous years, to the extent that this time, even if you see, the Fox News exit polls, they were talking about how 70% of Americans think that climate change is important, and up to 72% feel that there should be more investment in sectors like clean tech and clean energy. Now, Fox News giving this kind of message, which is very pro-climate action on the eve of elections, I think more than anything else speaks to also how the mental models, not just in America, but across the world, have really shifted towards anything which is going to drive sustainable development. And I think that is fundamental to people's minds. Whether you talk about how, the COVID lockdown and people's experiences about quality of life have changed, but really this is true that the public perception and social attitude on the issue of sustainability itself has taken a shift. And that could be one of the reasons as going forward, because Joe Biden will come with a lot of difficulty, and as CB described, with not having the Senate, and that itself is going to create tensions. So there has to be something which eventually becomes the driving force, whether it comes from youth or from first-time voters. Like Salim said, all these are going to create that window of opportunity, because on the one hand, you have markets, but which have existed for a long time. So what is it that is going to be different this time, and how, the politics will shake out? I think this is going to be one important aspect. On coal, I'm not an expert on coal, but my opinion really is that despite Donald Trump's efforts in the last 4 years to roll back the clean power plans and, to really give an upsurge and uptick to coal has been kind of dying fast in the US anyway, and the oil and gas industry is facing some new kind of pressures as well. You cannot talk about coal and just address the climate angle to it. There is also the energy finance angle. There is also an angle of how utilities are dealing with it. And it is more and more becoming evident that even in America, utilities are abandoning coal for just actually not even going to gas, but directly switching from coal to renewables. And that is the kind of leapfrog which possibly the world is going to look at. At the risk of repeating, Salim also mentioned, there are states like Texas, even those like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and others, fast-growing clean tech sector, and a lot of benefits to the community and their economies. And people are seeing all of that. What bearing will it have for India? I mean, I think our issues on coal are a totally different debate. A lot of it is domestic.
No, but Aarti, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
What CB just said, that Joe Biden can also bring a lot of pressure on India. So till now, if Joe Biden takes certain domestic decision on coal and this sort of things, that is bound to have implication on India's coal policy as well. Because I can see that Joe Biden he said that if elected, Biden proposed to invest $1.7 trillion over the next 10 years into clean energy and environmental justice, and $5 trillion from the private sector and local investment in addition to the government point of view. So it means that he has some schemes and he's also talking about to create 250,000 jobs in plugging abundant oil and natural gas wells and reclaiming abundant coal. So it's clear that he has certain policy, and so if he kind of even implements part of it, it is definitely, as CB said, is going to bring pressure on India. So India is already going big on coal despite all renewables. So any implication on there?
Sure. Let me try and answer it in a way which, and I will start by saying that when you talk of India's energy transition, that really has moved from the drawing board, and it is, into practice now. And regardless of the geopolitics, and to an extent actually driven by geopolitics and how the global investment scenario on coal, etc., looked, coal is at a slight disadvantage already. Of course, experts can argue better than me on how it's going to continue to remain in the energy mix. Okay. It's no longer a question of whether you want more coal or you want more solar. It's really a question of how you balance a portfolio where you can have coal, but you can also keep ramping up, and additional capacities can actually be met by renewable sources like solar and wind. And coal is not going away from the mix.
No, harping on that same point, that do you feel that India's coal policy will be pushed back or forced to push back? If Biden... I
feel India has enough reasons of its own to figure out its coal policy, whether it is related to energy finance, whether it's related to investment, whether it's related to public demand for clean air, or it's related to the non-compliance of FGDs and putting the pollution control technology. There are too many skeletons in the closet, and that just opens as you just open that thing. I will pause. Yeah.
Okay. We'll be coming with the kind of related issues we need to discuss, but let me come back to Salim Saab. That see, election, we are all expecting, and as per the data or as per the info, that Joe Biden is going to win. But if we look at the entire American picture, you find that the central part is all red. And I was just looking at the states that Trump has won or going to win is huge. So my point is Florida, Iowa, Ohio, Texas, Indiana, Kansas, Missouri, Montana, South Carolina, Utah, Alabama, likewise. So point is that what the point I was making before, that do you think that US internally, I understand as a federal government, it will be starting renegotiating with the rest of the world, may rejoin the Paris Agreement in a smooth manner. But will it be able to do that domestically? Will it be possible for it? Because if this Republic-driven states don't agree, and we have seen during the Trump era that oppositions were actually went to internationally saying that we are still in. There's two US stalls in the international negotiation. One is the official US government, and one is the so-called unofficial one. So same thing can happen again. So what's your take on that?
It's a very good question. So let me answer that with a slightly different angle. I will now assert that this year, 2020, is not just the year of COVID-19 global pandemic, which it clearly is, but it's also the tipping point year, where human-induced climate change is a reality. Bangladesh and India, just a few months ago in Maine, got hit by a super cyclone Amphan. You got it in Kolkata, and then we got it immediately afterwards, and it devastated the Sundarbans. Super cyclone. Super cyclones of that nature in the old decades used to kill hundreds of thousands of people in our part of the world. They don't anymore because we have one of the best cyclone warning and shelter schemes, both in India and in Bangladesh. So to me, the reality of climate change is far more, hundreds of times more important than a Paris Agreement written on a piece of paper. Countries agree to do it and then they don't do it. You cannot hold them to account. That, that world has gone. It's good to have it, it's useful, but don't expect anything. They did not deliver anything for the last 25 years. Climate change will deliver. And I mentioned this earlier. The United States had super wildfires in California and in Oregon. 500,000 people in the US lost their lives and their livelihoods. Their houses got burnt. This is a super wildfire that is because of human-induced climate change, attributable to human-induced climate change. The hurricanes that they had in the coast of Louisiana, the heat waves they are having in the central US, the sea level rise that Florida is taking. Miami is now regularly inundated by high tides and high floods. Okay, so the US is a very vulnerable country. So is India. So is Bangladesh. Bangladesh is one of the most vulnerable countries. So to me, a much more important uniting factor around the world is that citizens of every country in the world are being hit by climate change, and they're going to demand action from their leaders. And I believe, in fact, if you look at China's taking forward its 2060 net zero pledge, it is driven by China's own vulnerability to climate change and the realization that 3-degree world is not good for China. They may want to burn coal, they have cheap coal, but it's not going to be good for China, for the agriculture and the people of China. So it's in China's interest to keep the temperature below 2 degrees, and it's the same for India. And so, in my view, self-interest of every country to go to net zero emissions as quickly as possible. And that's really to answer Chandra's question. The United States is talking about 2050. California has already done 2045, by the way. We, the vulnerable developing countries, we have this vulnerable climate forum that my Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina now chairs from Bangladesh. 48 of the poorest, most vulnerable countries, we have agreed to 100% renewable by 2050, even though our emissions are tiny. Doesn't matter. It's the moral right thing to do, and we believe we can do it, and we want to do it, and we want everybody else to do that as well. And I think every country needs to look at its own development pathway, see where they can best make a good, clean development going forward. And to, the final point I'll make is to answer your question that in Biden's own words, if you heard him during the campaign and the debate, whenever he talked about climate change, he said, Donald Trump thinks it's a hoax, calls it a hoax. I call it jobs, which is a very good formulation, green jobs. Okay, so he is promoting it as a prosperity agenda, not something that is going to be bad for America. It's good for America. And I think that that's the way to think of it for everybody, every country, including India.
CB, what Salim Saab is saying, that he is building it up in different way, kind of strategizing different way. But even if we go back to, I know it's 10 years back in climate change negotiations, a long time, but when Barack Obama first kind of came into the picture, we clearly could see two part of Barack Obama action. One is the first part and the second part. And definitely in the initial part, he was not all that proactive about the climate change issues. Now, do you really feel that internationally, CB, America will go beyond the point? Because we may be putting a lot of hopes on Joe Biden, but that's in sharp contradiction with what the Trump has done over the last few years. As because the term has gone to that nadi, we are hoping that Biden will be all great. But we have to, if we actually assess it on ground, do you feel, CB, that Biden will actually deliver significantly internationally, even a leadership role you expect US to take?
I think you need to understand. I think the answer has already come in the discussion that we are having. Aarti and Salim have touched upon this issue, that this, even when Trump was there, I hope I will use this word was. he should
still yeah, keeping the finger crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think 4 years of Trump, US emissions was going down. It's very important to understand that, in fact, US greenhouse gas emission during 4 years of Trump has gone down more than the last term of Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. It's very important to understand. So we give too much credit to president and prime minister to decide the fate of a society. Okay, people and market do, okay, matter. And this is what we see in the US. Coal is losing out. Even in certain area, gas is cheap. For example, in Pennsylvania, where it has become a big political issue. But in large part of the US, where gas pipeline cannot reach, cheap shale gas cannot reach, renewables are the cheapest source of energy. Now, so it makes sense. Any person who has, who understands the subject knows that we are at the tipping point, cusp of a technological revolution. What we need, the only one missing factor is affordable, long duration battery technology. Mm-hmm. You get battery, your internal combustion engine will become history, coal will become history, your electricity grid will change. So the entire energy sector right now hinges on one technology. We know how to produce electricity, frankly. The only problem is we do not know store it cheaply. And I think we are at the cusp in battery technology also. There is a large number of battery technology that it's $1 trillion industry. Everyone is trying. People do not know, but in India also, we now have $1 million program to support battery development. So everyone is trying to get this piece of action. And that will happen in the US also. Biden also knows that US infrastructure has to change. In fact, India has much advanced electricity transmission technology than US. In the US, you can still see electricity line on wooden poles, okay, which you will not see in Bangladesh and India. We now have underground electricity lines. So even infrastructure-wise, it will make sense for US to now start looking at infrastructure development in a climate-sensible way. As far as India is concerned, I will end with this. Even though there has been announcement by government of India that they want to open new coal mines, but the interest has been very lukewarm. Yes. Market knows that coal has another 20 years. So 2 points I want to make. I don't think coal is not going tomorrow anywhere in the world, even in Europe. Germany, the first one to talk about.
So you say it's a bad investment. It's a bad investment.
It's a bad investment today, and in 10 years, it is going to become worse investment. So point number one, coal has time. It is going to taper off over a period of time. It is not going to close tomorrow. And therefore, we will have to start thinking about transition in coal mining areas. You know, if you do not have transition in coal mining area, those people will not like coal mines to be closed. US election is also about whether you close or not. That is point number one. And so we have time for coal. And point number two is that if I start looking at today, for example, two trajectory, renewable going up and coal going down, we have to start talking about that trajectory today, because this trajectory has to come to an end in 15 years. And I am quite sure that if any developing country, including Bangladesh and India, we need to build more energy because we do not have energy. And if we start thinking about building a clean energy portfolio today, maybe by 2035, 2040, we should be able to think about 100% renewable. Okay, that is going to happen.
That's quite hopeful words. But before I go over to Imran and Aarti, I have a quick question, very quick response I need from both of you. Maybe CB first and then to Salim Saab. Is that it's quite understood that the climate change, the way it has been pervading, so it's now not only just an environmental issue, it's an existential issue, it's an economical issue. And all said and done, Aarti was pointing out that 72% Americans are in favor of climate change. But 50% voted for Biden, knowing fully well that Trump is completely anti-climate change. So it's a very gross calculation, 22% voted against so-called climate agenda, meaning other agendas are more important, if we can take it in that way. And also, Salim Saab, you were talking about Florida. Florida is one state that Trump has owned. So it clearly shows that the experience of impact, the impact that Florida has kind of had, didn't have much impact on the people voting. We know the people vote in strange manner. We have seen all across the world, even in India, in Bangladesh, I think the voting is a different ball game. But having said that, these are not the numbers are not matching. The numbers are not matching, despite everything. So very quickly, CB first, then Salim Saab.
CB, climate change is not the only issue on which people vote. Okay, in Delhi also, if you ask people, 90% of the people will say they are worried about air pollution. Okay, but when voting happens, no one votes for support of air pollution. So I think we need to understand that voting happens a lot on local issues. What is affecting my life? Climate change might be affecting life of, say, about 15-20% of the population in the US who are directly in the line of hurricane and wildfire, might not be for 80%, at least as of now. Okay, so they will not vote for what is going to happen 15 years down the line. They will vote for now.
Yes, carry on.
I just want to add one more point here. Do not think that voting will reflect action. Okay? the same argument can be done for Trump now. Majority of US voted for Hillary Clinton. Okay.
Popular
But
votes.
Trump,
Popular votes.
Yeah, so popular vote. So I don't think that this analysis is correct.
Okay. But I think CB has actually responded to my query in a different way. But he accepted that the issues like air pollution and climate change is not really the priority issue when I'm going to press the button. So if that happens in a democracy, if an issue is not strong enough to push me to vote, then will it be count in the long run, Salim Saab?
Well, my answer is yes. And I tell you why. If you analyze the election, even though, it's just even still counting the final votes, there are two very, very important elements to this. Firstly, it's the biggest turnout in the US history. The number of people voting, and I mentioned earlier, the first-time voters, a major element in that. Another major element are the ethnic minorities, Blacks, Asians, and Latins. And the impacts of climate change all over the world, mostly in poor countries, even within the developed countries like the United States, the biggest victims are the ethnic minorities. They live near the environmental pollution and they live in the path of the hurricanes, and they are the ones who are suffering, and they know about climate change, and they are out there voting. And right now, as you see the numbers tick up one by one in Pennsylvania and in Georgia, these are Black voters in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh who are every single 10 votes that you see, 8 votes are going to Biden and 2 votes are going to Trump. And these are Black people who are affected. They are voting with their own time. And many of them for the first time. They didn't vote for Hillary. They're coming out for Biden. So, voting is very nuanced. You can aggregate everything and say, it was this or it was that. It wasn't. It's quite complicated.
It's not like that. It's not that simple mathematics coming into the picture.
Right.
Imran Saab, this is the scenario that we are talking about. Now, coming to the political part of it, the US government has a certain kind of relationship with the present Imran Khan driven the Pakistan government. Do you feel, I'm limiting myself to the environment and climate change part, that Biden winning the election, and as CB has pointed out, the country like India is definitely, China and India are going to feel the pressure. So what are the Pakistan reaction? Because Pakistan is one of the also highly affected, climate affected area, air pollution affected area. So any significant change in the policy in the future? You are from the policy platform. So do you expect any policy changes in Pakistan also vis-a-vis this US election and the pressure that been brought on by the Biden's expected win?
Dr. Salim had said it well. I mean, this is when it comes to environmental issues and when it comes to climate change, it has the local manifestation is important here, right? So it's and hence the local response is important. So whatever is happening in the US is good and well. And I think earlier I talked about multilateralism and we can collaborate on things, but let's not fool ourselves into thinking that what's happening in Washington, DC will somehow have an impact in Islamabad or Delhi or Dhaka. That's not going to happen. We have our own issues. We're going to address them. If the US Embassy is putting up air pollution monitors, that's in Delhi or Islamabad. It's doing it to protect its own citizens, to ensure that when they bring their families in, the air quality that they have is better, and they can be better informed about what's going on. So it can have a side effect, and that can lead for Environmental Protection Department in Islamabad to address these issues, but that's not the priority. And Pakistan has always been seen by the US through a security lens, right? So we've been seen through what's happening in Afghanistan and what's happening in China. In around 1970, when the US wanted to make inroads into Beijing, it contacted Pakistan, and Pakistan served as a pathway whereby US could have a dialogue with China at that time. After that, we had the Soviet Union invade Afghanistan, and it was that particular lens. And even now, as the US tries to leave Afghanistan, Pakistan is going to play a separate role. And here, environment or climate change is definitely not on the agenda. What I will say here is that when it comes to Pakistan and how it moves forward vis-a-vis climate change, environmental protection, China is perhaps going to have a different role here. So I'm going to give it a geopolitical twist here.
That's a geopolitical twist. That's a geopolitical twist.
Yeah. So you have the China-Pakistan economic corridor as part of the Belt and Road Initiative, right? Under that, when it was first conceived, Pakistan went ahead and built a number of coal power plants. And so we, in order to address our energy needs, but as my colleagues have just mentioned, coal is something that's dying off. Can we remain on that front? While China is saying that by 2050 or 2060, they'll go carbon neutral. So here we should be looking towards our partners in China and saying, coal has had its day, let's move towards renewable. And so Pakistan does have a renewable energy policy where Pakistan is going to go have 30% of its energy coming from renewable.
You feel, Imran Saab, that China's kind of a reflected action will kind of push Pakistan a bit on these issues. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So this is, as I said, this is what it's up to us. If we're going to ask China for coal power plants, China will be happy to give us coal power plants. If we ask them for renewables, they'll be happy to give us renewables.
But what you are happy, the big question is, what you'll be happy to do? That's the big question. What the government of Pakistan is happy to do. Asking for the coal-fired thermal power plants or renewable plants. That's the important question the answer to be known. What your priority is. Are you still like India is still on the coal fire, trying to do coal fire? You are still on the coal fire, or you are trying to shift towards the renewable?
Okay, so I'll quickly try and answer this. So the coal power sector really gained momentum during the previous Nawaz Sharif regime. Because a lot of these discussions around coal happened before the Imran Khan government came in. Imran Khan has come in and he's had a green agenda. So we've had the billion tree tsunami, which has been a great success.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Campaign. There's a green and clean Pakistan program going on, and there's a renewable energy momentum. So this government really intends to take
more pro-environment
agenda. So what my understanding is that there were a couple of new coal power plants that they put on hold in favor of renewables. Only time will tell whether we are able to address these needs in a greener way. So
basically what I understand, whatever we do between India and Pakistan, when the policy decision comes, the same policy item mixing of coals with the renewable, that's the order of the day. So whatever we do between us, we follow the same policy. Aarti, one point I need to raise a flag on, then and come to Salim Saab and Sibi, is that when US was there, I think formally was there as part of the global negotiation, we find that they always stymied the loss and damage. They are happy with talking about mitigation, they're happy with talking about adaptation even, but when the loss and damage comes up from Warsaw and all, they never ever allowed that to proceed. So this new Biden, so-called green US government, we are projecting it. Are we really, Aarti, kind of hoping too much? Or again, do you feel that this loss and damage, the kind of which is going to impact the country like India, country like Bangladesh, Sundarbans area, is it going to happen, Aarti?
Well, that's a loaded question, to be honest. There are several aspects to climate change itself. There is one which is about international diplomacy and about the rhetoric and, about using it as a glue to bring diplomacy together. And I think to that extent, climate change has really done some good work in the last couple of years. I'm not even getting into details of how, US is really infamous. It was the Kyoto Protocol before. Then while the Paris Agreement was signed, was also the same issue that it had to be by executive order and you could not take it to the Senate. So you got something which was amorphous and fuzzy, but yet you had something which was a bare minimum, and US pulled out of that even, and the countries have, gone into doldrums to figure out how things will be. But, in the course of all of that, 20-25 years have passed. That's less than the time that I have been working in this sector. But clearly the feeling really is that, there are few things that are going to happen now, and the direction of travel is pretty set. On your question, and which is the things like energy transition, which is the shift to clean mobility, which is, where you see a logic and rationale to do it, regardless of how showing climate leadership across the world. India will put up a large amount of renewables. We might not do 450 gigawatts by 2030, but we will do significant amount to then replace a lot of coal. And I think that is one fundamental thing. The second issue is that already you can see, today there was a heads of state level meeting between the Italian Prime Minister and the Indian Prime Minister, and talking about the COP and the pre-COP. Now, Biden is not even president-elect right now. We are talking about all these things. So the world is going to get excited about what are the possibilities.
The world is getting excited.
So,
But very quickly, the initial point that he was trying to make, that do you feel that loss and damage will be allowed to go on? It will be still being stimulated, still being kind of pushed back?
I will say very briefly on this, because I'm not an expert and I don't understand this. All I know is that
whatever you hear around, because I know you are hearing a lot.
At the COP in 2013, the Warsaw International Mechanism was set, and there have been enough climate impacts between that time and now. And this whole thing of, 100 billion never saw the light of day, more than 8 or 9 billion. And here we are talking of a huge chunk of money, which is opportunity cost in that way. And I feel that we are very, very far away from making that a reality. I mean, that does not look like with Biden coming, that's suddenly going to get a new lease of life.
Going to change. So it will take a time. It will take its own time. One sweet time, perhaps. Salim Saab and CB, same question to both of you. Because I am raising this question also in context to that whether the loss and damage will be agenda or US will still push it back. I'm asking this because Aarti has talked about the hope. There's a hope, it's a buzz around that Biden coming, everything will be going to be hunky-dory. I remember when Copenhagen happened, and when we went to cover Copenhagen, incidentally, Copenhagen was the first climate conference that I covered. And I still remember when we reached the Copenhagen, CB was there, or CB came in a flight maybe an hour after, if my memory serves me right. We reached an hour before. And we took a metro to go to the hotel. And we found all over the metro area, this is called Hope. So Copenhagen was renamed Copenhagen because there's a huge hope around with that US President Barack Obama, the American president, and then, the Chinese premier, the Indian prime minister, everybody coming. So there's a hope that everything will be solved very clearly. And then actually the game begins to start. And we all know what happened in Copenhagen. It was a disaster, complete disaster. And I can still remember when the next COP, the Cancun happened, and somehow the whole thing was kind of restructured a bit. I can still see that photograph in the Cancun famous beach. Hope with a question mark came back with a question mark. So are we hoping too much, or we are not? And whether this loss and damage will be a serious agenda in the coming days, because this is very important for a country like Bangladesh and India. That's why I'm asking this to both of you.
Sure. So thank you, Jayanta. Very important point. In fact, this is a very key negotiation issue on which I work personally. I advise the least developed countries group on loss and damage in particular. So two answers. Firstly, on the Copenhagen event, you mentioned the COP in Copenhagen. It started off as a Copenhagen, and it ended up Brokenhagen. So it did not succeed. And then we had to pick up the pieces and start. Exactly. We had to pick up the pieces in Cancun and work towards Paris. In Paris, however, we did succeed. We got an agreement in the end, and Barack Obama was there. But this particular issue, loss and damage, we'd argued very fiercely to have an article on loss and damage, Article 8 of the Paris Agreement. And going into Paris, the developed countries didn't want this article. The negotiating text for each article was, there was an option A from the developing countries and then an option B from the developed countries. On Article 8, the option A from developing countries article on loss and damage, and then we had 4 paragraphs, what we want to have in it. The option B from the developed countries is delete this paragraph. They didn't give any text. They just said, we don't want this. And then for 2 weeks, we argued and argued and argued, and we finally got it. And in the last minute, this was one of the issues that went to the last minute of the COP, Senator John Kerry, or then Secretary of State John Kerry, with the Prime Minister of Tuvalu, Enele Sapuaga, the two of them asked their aides to leave the room, and the two of them finally agreed to have the article in. And the US, this is under Barack Obama, insisted on one paragraph, that is that you have to say this is nothing to do with compensation and liability, which is a very strange article to put in an agreement. What is this not about? Usually you say, what is this agreement about? And they insisted, you have to say, this is not about compensation and liability, otherwise we won't be able
to make it very clear. They're not going to
very clear. And he said this himself. Otherwise, we will not be able to face the Republicans in Congress. They will kill us. They'll say we have given everything away. So you have to put this paragraph in. We'll give you the article, but you have to put this paragraph in the COP21 decision that it cannot be used for liability and compensation. Okay, so even under Obama, this was a very taboo subject, very difficult for them. Now, what will happen going forward? Things have changed, as I said. 2020 is a new world. Climate change is actually happening. So they cannot stop it from being discussed. Last year in COP25 in Madrid, in Spain, this was an item on the agenda. We pushed very hard for climate loss and damage to be given a financial recognition. We lost. COP25 went in 2 extra days. This was one of the items that was argued till the end. And in the end, there was no decision. We didn't get what we wanted. Now we are preparing for COP26 in Glasgow next year. This is an issue that we are going to be taking up very, very seriously. And I mentioned earlier that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina of Bangladesh, as the leader of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, has already indicated to British Prime Minister Boris Johnson that if this is not resolved, at least at a political level, in COP, then we will declare COP a failure, COP26 in Glasgow a failure. So let us see what they say. It will be difficult, and Obama, Biden, if he comes in at that time, will have to face it. But they will not be able to, put it under the ground and refuse to talk about it, which they've done for many, many years.
Sibi, what do you feel, that loss and damage will be a serious agenda or not really?
No, I personally believe that we have seen 25 years of UNFCCC. We are actually, if we are on the cusp of energy transition, we are also at the cusp of multilateralism in climate change. And we have to be creative about it. The world of 1990s was very different than the world of 2020. Okay. 1990, Soviet Union had collapsed. US was the sole superpower. Okay. China was nowhere. India was nowhere. Okay. That is a very different world than a world of 2020, where you have a multipolar world. Even though polarity is weak at certain point, but you have a multipolar world. Africa is Nigeria and South Africa. Latin America is Brazil, Argentina. Europe is there. India is there. China is there. So I mean to say it's a multipolar world that is emerging, and there's a multipolar reality. And we have to think even loss and damage in a much more creative way. ODA came post Second World War. Okay. Overseas development assistance was a construct of colonialism, and compensation is ODA. Today, developed countries are not meeting even their ODA commitments. Okay, the 2% ODA commitment that is there, they're not meeting it. On top of it, if we are going to say that we need loss and damage, we have to be practical and realistic how these two framing will work. So there are things that...
So you're saying that it's not economically, doesn't make much sense.
No, what I'm saying is we need to move multilateralism from the competitiveness of 1990. The framework is very competitive. 1990 framework is dog eat dog world. Okay, that framing will not work for loss and damage.
Will not work.
2020 framing has to be a cooperative framework where the more affluent will help the least affluent, because everyone is suffering in this world.
So that CB has been happening over the last 10 years. That's everybody is suffering, maybe in a different scale, but every COP we find that it got struck. It gets struck, and the issue like loss and damage doesn't have much.
I think COP as a singular event has to also go. You need to have multiple COPs and regional platforms to discuss these. That's one event where everyone comes and thinks that he will solve the world's problem. So multilateralism will have to be redefined in the world of 2020.
Okay, so I'm coming to the almost end of the program. Over 5 minutes we have. I'll start in the Aarti and then I'll go across and I'll end up with Salim Saab. South Asian countries are one of the most affected in terms of climate change, in terms of air pollution, in terms of biodiversity loss. There was a recent report of the WWF which says that 68% biodiversity has been lost over the world, and also a similar percentage in the South Asian countries. Now, unfortunately, the African countries, when they have been fighting among themselves, they put up a regional platform and they put up a regional voice to kind of underscore the importance and the need and the demands they want to make to the global community. But when it comes to the South Asian countries, we really allow the politics to come so closely. I had the chance to interact closely with the Pakistan Environment Minister in the last COP, and also the Indian minister, definitely. And they, in individual discussion, all of them agree that we need to discuss. We need to discuss the climate change issues. We need to discuss the air pollution issue. We need to kind of take a holistic and kind of collaborative position which can be put to the global world. But it's going to be happening. So if it cannot happen at the government level, don't you think, Aarti, and I have the same question I'm posing to all of you, the Tier 2, Tier 3 negotiation should be there in between these countries, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Maldives, and everybody, because we are all being affected much more than global, it's a regional platform. Do we need that? Don't we need that?
Well, in principle, yes. I mean, too many of our issues are across borders. Lahore faces almost the same or even worse pollution on a particular day as compared with Delhi. The large swaths of the Indo-Gangetic Plain, as it is called, is the most polluted hotspot in the world. Climate impacts, are kind of similarly affecting the whole region. So in that spirit, and even how the energy transition really needs to take place for the benefit of the social transition and the communities to be better equipped to have a better quality of life and all of that. Culturally, we are quite similar. Sundarbans sees no boundaries between India and Bangladesh, and it's one ecosystem which is extremely fragile and world famous for several reasons. But I feel, the glue doesn't come across, and maybe the reasons for that. The reasons for that have got nothing to do with the impacts that we are facing as one community, but really on how, we are not being able to manage our own geopolitics. And maybe, that itself needs a relook. And India in the position that it is, and we all know that whether it's the Paris Agreement or announcement.
But Aarti, isn't it strange? I understand the glue cannot come there when the government talk is there. But what is preventing the academicians, the experts, the researchers, even the media to the Tier 2, Tier 3 kind of collaboration that somewhere down the line can push the government to something more meaningful?
Fair enough. And nothing is preventing. I think that's a thing which should happen. It happens at some degree. There is a track 2, I know, on, there is a collaboration on air quality, putting the same kind of sensors that are in Delhi are also being put in Lahore, Islamabad, and Karachi now. The same kind of experts who are understanding air quality monitoring in India are trying to do that in Pakistan and Nepal as well. We just need more cohesion. We need just to give it more momentum, Yeah, and I think that just needs to have that focus. We are all the time worried about how, the track 2 with India, US and India, China will go. Maybe it's also time that we
need to talk about the India-Pakistan track 2.
Place more value about all of these things, because ultimately that's what it comes to.
Imran Sahab, other day I was in the YouTube for 1 hour. I was looking at innings where Sunil Gavaskar and Imran Khan was playing for a World 11. I was completely mesmerized. I had a different work, but the moment it suddenly came up and I was in my mobile, I was seeing that Sunil Gavaskar and Imran Khan playing together. It's a 30-45 minutes sort of likewise video. It's wonderful. So even in sports, even other issues, we can talk across. What is preventing us? I understand the glue is not there, Aarti's meaning. Geopolitics is preventing the glue. But what prevents the Tier 2, Tier 3 diplomacy to take in? Is it realistic, or I'm just hoping too much? Imran Sahab?
No, it's a perfectly put question. I think Imran Khan and Sunil Gavaskar are talking. You've got university students and university professors abroad who are talking. You have even the Indus Waters commissioners on both sides have a very good rapport. so they might have issues in terms of data sharing and how things are happening, but on a personal level, those things are bridged because of the language issues, the culture issues, and then same thing with Bangladesh, same thing with Sri Lanka, same thing with Nepal. So we've got these commonalities. That
now, are you seeing it happening, or you see it's not really, it's far away, not really right now?
So what we're doing right now is part and parcel of that, right? So when you reached out to me and I said, yes, let's do it. And so perhaps technology
is do it on ground is difficult.
Right? So technology is bringing us together. We're able to do so many of these things. So there are opportunities, but unfortunately we're not taking them on, and we're still hiding behind some of the preconceived notions because of political reasons or whatever reasons there are. But I think that what COVID has done has allowed us this window of opportunity in terms of what technology allows us, and to take that forward. So because your question is very valid, why aren't universities talking? Why aren't think tanks talking? And I think we need to start taking that up and build on it so that we can benefit each other, because, they're not recognized.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's
and
what
so,
I'm saying. Absolutely.
Jayanta, I just want to add something here.
Please.
Yeah. I think what Imran said is absolutely right. What was stopping us to do track 2? I did track 2 from 2009 till 2014 with Pakistan India track 2. Then we stopped giving visa to Pakistani people, and Pakistan stopped giving us visa. Now visa is history. We can do it online. Technology allows us to do it. And in fact, what Imran is saying is absolutely right. I am announcing right now on your platform that I will go back and revive track 2 between India and Pakistan online.
I think we should have a clap to that.
Yeah, we will revive it. Yeah,
absolutely.
We will revive track 2 again.
I really don't understand. CB, I can still remember that CARTS organized a SARC level meeting about a few years back, where first that's a program that we are having right now. This idea of that is a program, a media platform or a media kind of aggregation where the issues of common interest in South Asia will be dealt together. And it was thought, say maybe a journalist from Bangladesh, journalist from India, journalist from Pakistan, maybe Maldives, maybe we will be doing on particular stories. This is a sea-level rise. Everybody will be putting in their data info. We'll have a comprehensive story, and perhaps that story will be released simultaneously in the major papers across Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, and everywhere in various languages. I understand that would have a great opportunity to push the politicians to collaborate to increase the glue that Aarti was talking about to much more meaningful manner. But today, as CB were pointing out, this technology, today we are having all of us are chatting. We may have a difference of opinion, but we're all chatting. What's preventing us? So I think the time is right. When you said, CB, I think again, coming back to you, you said the world has changed. The 1990s world, perhaps we are doing a bit of a prehistoric politics. So 1990s world and 2020 world are different. So we should kind of go back, and as you said, we are all hoping that maybe in the next program or a few programs down the line, I have to bring all of you, and CB will tell us how he's kind of pushing this agenda of track 2 in India, Pakistan, and also take Bangladesh together. Salim Saab, the Sundarban, we are doing it. Not really doing it, I will say, but I think we are discussing, at least trying to forge something. So what's preventing us to do in a broader scale in South Asia? Identify the issues of common interest, identify the issues of common agreement, and take it to the global platform and demand our due. What's preventing us from doing it?
Well, nothing's preventing us, and I would like to also, echo Chandra's point. Let us take it forward. Let us not look back at, why it didn't happen. Let's do, and I'll give you 2 examples where I think we can build on, and today's conversation should be the start of building on that. The first one is a relatively old one that many of us in this call are part of, is the Climate Action Network South Asia. We all have been in that. It is a good platform. It's been a very effective at times, but it has not done, perhaps it can do more. Let us think about how we can collaborate more under the CANSA umbrella, which is, in my view, one of the better, it's a global climate action network. There are many groups around the world. The South Asia CANSA is actually a very good one. Whenever we're in the COPs, we all get together and we work together. And, there's no politics inside the CANSA groups. Or Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, wherever we're from. So let us see if we can build that on the ground here rather than at the COP.
Sanjay can play a very important role.
Sanjay, very good. Harjeet, very good. All our friends are in this. So we have been doing this for a long time together. Yes. The second one, I would say, is a new one, but I want to bring it up and ask for your participation in it. Under the Global Center on Adaptation, there was a Global Commission on Adaptation. The Dutch have set up a Global Center on Adaptation. They are setting up regional centers around the world. And they just launched a regional center in Dhaka for South Asia. Just a couple of months ago in September, the Prime Minister, our Prime Minister, together with Ban Ki-moon, who is the chair of that center, they launched it. And it's a regional center for the South Asian region. And I will be playing a role there to bring universities together. So we are putting together a university network in South Asia, and I would like to involve all of you in helping me find partners and then see if we can use this network. Universities at two levels. One is the faculty, researchers, teaching, and then students, young people, youth, how we can bring the youth together. So to me, these are two very great opportunities that we have in the region. And as everyone has already pointed out, our living in a virtual world now actually brings us together. The options of doing these kinds of things are now much more than they used to be in the past. We don't have to travel. We don't need the visas anymore, as Chandra said.
Absolutely. I think it's great. I think it has been a great conversation for last 1 hour or so. And I have been part of so many of these, but this is really, and as CB and Salim Saab finally said, that I think there's a lot of opportunities opening up. I think as journalists, as media persons, our job is not to just raise questions and ask what nation will do, but also our job is to find the solution. And I think this program today has actually opened up possibilities. And I'll be pushing Salim Saab, I'll be pushing CB to know what exactly is happening on that ground. Absolutely. And as Salim Saab pointed out, these regional platforms. And I think media, there are two kinds of people. One, the decision makers and decision pushers, and the decision builders. The academics, we are actually building up evidences on which the decision should be taken. The decision should be taken with the politicians. But the media can play a very effective role, as we have seen in Sundarbans, that we collectively, many of us together, could build within a period of 1 year, 1,000 international articles, national and international articles on Sundarban itself. That put the whole Sundarban agenda to a different level. So if that can be, and you are there, Arti, you are a communication person, I think you can play a very critical role in this whole exercise. So I think that this is definitely doable. We can have the regional center, we can identify media and other issues, universities, they can be part of it, and we can go together. And Imran Saab, I think definitely from Pakistan, your institute is there, Islamabad, definitely can collaborate. I think it's a very, very hopeful note, and really it's a bad time. COVID has opened up certain possibilities. As CB pointed out, we have never thought of doing this kind of programs, never ever. Now, even COVID goes away, tomorrow I'll be doing same program. Because the technology is now there to do that. So with that note, and with thanking you everybody and looking forward, I think really with a very hopeful mind, I am concluding today, but with an idea, with a feeling that we'll be soon back discussing it again. Thank you everybody for.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Imran, give my regards to Abid Bhai.
I will do that. And let's take your suggestion forward.
Yes, we should. In fact, I will write to him about the
recording. We can discuss like that. No issue. You just switch up the recording.
Yeah. So I will write to Abid Bhai about restarting the track 2. Let's
see you. Yeah. Happy to be part of it. Nice to have seen you, CB, today. I will write to you separately.
The recording can be stopped, Ashidao.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Great. Thank you, Arti.
Take care. Bye.
So I think CB, I think it went on well. You feel?
Yeah, it went well.
It went on well. I think a lot we discussed. Imran Saab.
Online, on the phone, and in person. We are transforming the way we do business to provide all Canadians with the benefits and services they need. Every year, and from every corner of the country, we help deliver more than $120 billion in benefits and interact with Canadians over 140 million times a year. We're committed to giving Canadians what you want, a world-class experience, delivering benefits and services when you need them, accurate and consistent service no matter where you live. a resolution to your issues the first time you contact us. 100% accessibility with digital by choice everywhere. And we continue to improve. Planning a trip? We offer passport services at more than 300 Service Canada centres across Canada. We've also cut employment insurance wait periods in half, and more Canadians are receiving the Guaranteed Income Supplement and Old Age Security through automatic enrollment. But we're not stopping there. We're developing digital tools that will give you access to our services 24/7. You will have the flexibility of using our services wherever you are, any time of day, through a user-friendly mobile application. Our service transformation is also about a different way of working. It's about listening to Canadians, asking them how they want to access our programs and benefits. It's also